Welcome to the newest general introduction to D7. My name is Nick, and I want to talk with you about the system info page in this video. A lot's changed since the original introduction, but most of the things on this page still apply, but I did want to redo this video regardless. So let's get started. When you first start D7, you're going to be on the system info page, which you can always return to by clicking here. The first thing you'll notice are the icons at the top. All of them correspond. They're just graphical icons for the menu up here, the menu bar, which you can show or hide the menu bar as you want to. Or you can just, and you can use the icons, or you can use the actual text menu bar up here. One thing that a lot of people don't realize is that without the menu bar, they don't realize that the main icon, D7 icon, is clickable as well. Well, it is. So that's the main menu. Up at the top banner we have some system specs, RAM, total, percent used, what's free. We've got your IP address, whether you're connected to the internet or not. Then we've got specific details on your Windows version and Internet Explorer version. Now sometimes right here you'll notice CPU utilization. That's not supported on all platforms. It's not dependent on OS as much as it is on the actual processor. So when the CPU utilization is not available, it does not appear here. As you see, it's not appearing on my screen. However, I think, nope, not in a virtual machine either. Let me move on down the list here. Let's get started with the top menu. In the main menu, the first thing we have is Get System Access. Get System Access is something that you want to do to bypass file system and registry permissions in Windows. Get System Access will give you this prompt to relaunch D7 with system rights. Basically use that when removing stubborn malware or copying data that, for example, you might have a user profile that you don't have access to. That's what that's useful for. The next thing we have Set CPU Priority, where you can toggle the CPU priority of D7, what it utilizes. Our next option is Download App Launcher, which I won't get into. That's a registered feature, as well as the D7 Skin Picker, which allows you to choose different D7 skins. You can download the skin pack, and then here you have Adjust Form Size to Skin, so that if your skin, once you apply a skin, which I have a custom skin here called Trios Blue, and if you apply a skin and, for example, it cuts off a little bit of text on the bottom or a little bit of the side of the window, you can expand or shrink based on your skin, and that setting will be remembered, so that way you can customize it to work with the skin properly. The next thing we have is the D7. Actually, I'm not going to talk you through the rest of these options because a lot of these are redundant, and we'll come to them at other points in time throughout our visit to the rest of the interface. The next menu we have is the Run menu. From here you can run a program. Basically this brings a run prompt, just like your run prompt with Windows, with the exception that this run prompt, you'll notice, says Get System 1.4 at the top. This actually is the integration of an old app that I wrote and no longer release on its own, called Get System. And the app's purpose is to gain system access or run as a different user, a limited user, or what have you. for any item that you want to run. It's the same thing as running get system access up here, except it allows you to run any program with system access, not just D7. The next thing we have is command prompt, because we all use the command prompt and we all know what that is. Now, one thing I will tell you is that anytime you launch any program from within D7, including the command prompt, it automatically has administrator access. It is the same thing as running as administrator. You'll not get a way to even run a program as a limited user through D7 unless you use the run program option. Below command prompt we have command prompt system access at the bottom. You know what that is already. And in the middle we have command prompt browse for dir. That's browse for directory, and when you click on it, it allows you to browse for a directory. So I'm just going to hit desktop, and it will automatically change directory in your command prompt, so you don't have to change directory yourself. It's just a little perk I've added for the command line junkies in the crowd, and I'm one of them. Next we have our tools tab, process explorer, process monitor, what is hang, and debug view. We also have a custom tools config, which takes us to our config page. The reason for the custom tools config is because you can put any number of tools that you want in this menu. They don't have to be tools that have been previously integrated into D7. They can be any tool that you want. Next we have the scripts menu, and we have a scripts config and an open scripts directory. And you see in my scripts directory I have a test.bat. Well, I don't have that in the menu, but I can easily add it through the scripts config. That's something that we'll cover at a later time. But the whole purpose of this menu is so you can add your custom scripts. Now, what scripts are acceptable? Any batch script, .cmd, .bat, any VBS script, WSH, and registry files, .reg. Those are acceptable for the scripts menu. And you can add anything there that you want. You'll just basically open the scripts directory, place your custom script that you want to do in the scripts directory, and you'll go to the scripts config and add that script. Next we have a user control menu. User control is all about user accounts and other things. I have user accounts as the very first item here, and this is going to give you a list of the user accounts on the system, where you can remove all user passwords, open the control panel for users, open the classic user control panel, which a lot of you are familiar with, control space user passwords 2.cpl. But this is just an easier way to do it. You can create a new user, and you click on a user. You will get some information about the user generally. This is sort of an unfinished work, but you'll get the username, full name and description if available, the last logon time, if there is a logon script. You'll get the profile path, which and the user's SID. You'll also be able to enable or disable the user account, hide the user from the login screen, or choose to automatically log the user into Windows, remove the user password, or remove the entire user account. Next item up is Users Control Panel. That brings you the control panel for the users. Then we have User Passwords 2. That's just another shortcut to the classic user account control panel. Next we have Disable User Account Control. That's UAC. This is something that we'll get into in a little bit later on, but this can be done automatically by D7 for you. Then we have User Auto Logon Options, where you can select a name and have that user automatically log into Windows. You can also select put in the password, domain if applicable, and return to log on screen after screensaver option. Then we've got very convenient when remove all user passwords. Once you gain access to one account on a system, you're working on a system with multiple user accounts. Some of them are password protected. This is just a very easy way to remove all of the user account passwords at once. And then we have toggle hidden files and extensions on or off for the current user. That's something that D7 also can automatically do, like disabling user account control, and that's something I'll get into at a later point. For the Windows menu, we have shortcuts to frequently accessed items, for example, uninstall programs, etc., etc., msconfig, regedit, group policy editor, dcom config, DirectX diagnostics, driver verifier. If you're not familiar with this, I'm not going to get into it now, but that's a built-in component of Windows, and you should play around with it sometime, especially when you're troubleshooting some issues that may involve drivers. We've got signature verifier, system file checker, disk cleanup. I've tried to categorize these. Most of our control stuff is in here in the middle: control panel, system properties, display properties, computer management. The list goes on, and then at the bottom we have networking stuff, your internet properties, which is for your Internet Explorer, but we've also got network connections, which is a quick way to go right there. You know, now it's a multiple click process in Vista and 7, but with this shortcut you can actually use Control N when the D7 window is highlighted, and it will open network connections. You can map a network drive, open the firewall. Stored network credentials, there's a good one right there that this is sometimes buried in Windows, but it's good to have that shortcut. And then we have OS branding at the bottom, and that's something I'll get into at another time. The Internet menu has a ton of stuff as well. I'll try to stay on it. For one, the D7 network control panel at the top is actually the same thing as clicking on the IP address right here. And I'll let you do that and play around with that. That's going to be the subject of another video, and it's sort of an unfinished work, but I'm not going to get into that right now. Then we've got the D7 web browser. This is D7's own internal web browser. Now it does use Internet Explorer's base engine. However, it does not use any of Internet Explorer's bloat or add-ons. Another interesting thing on Windows XP is that if you've got a problem with Internet Explorer, for example doing Windows updates, you can actually do Windows updates through the D7 web browser. And more often than not, they'll work through D7's web browser when they won't work through Internet Explorer itself. Moving on, we've got Internet Explorer and the 64-bit version, if you need to launch that specifically. Internet properties again, a shortcut to reset IE to defaults, a shortcut to the Adobe Flash control panel if it's installed. The next thing we have is for networking, and you'll notice it says http://192.168.1.1. Why does it say that? That's because that is my gateway. What this does is it automatically, this D7 automatically detects your gateway. So if it's 10.0.0.1 or whatever your gateway is, it will appear here, and when you click on it, it will open the gateway in D7's web browser. So you can go directly to the router config without even really having to know what the router's IP address is generally. So that's a neat little feature of D7 right there. The next thing we have is ping Google and DNS, which opens up twin command windows and will ping google.com and will ping your DNS, your configured DNS server for an indefinite amount of time, so you want to just close those when you're ready. But that's good when you want to know if you can ping Google. If you've got a name resolution issue, you want to ping DNS as well. The next thing is Google, just a shortcut to Google, and then the Fix-It website from Microsoft. Then we've got some other things that I like to do when I'm cleaning up on systems. And when I'm cleaning up on these systems, after I'm done with malware removal and maintenance, Sometimes I might want to go to speedtest.net. Quali's browser check, which is a nice website that will check for outdated web browser components and give you a one-click option to update them. Then we've got Test Flash. This takes you to Adobe's test web page for Flash. The same for Shockwave below. The same for Java below that. The same for Silverlight below that. We also have Test PDF Integration. This tests the Adobe PDF integration with your web browser by opening a PDF that I host on my website. It's just a little test PDF. Then below that we have Test SSL, which takes you to a web page to test your SSL connections. Below that we've got virustotal.com and a quick link to install the VirusTotal uploader. I'm not going to get into that right now. Download Microsoft Security Essentials. Norton Update Center. I know a lot of you hate Norton, I do as well, but the fact is that more recent versions of Norton aren't nearly as bad, and most of the time your customers paid for it, they don't want to get rid of it. So excuse me, what you can do if you have an outdated version of Norton on the computer with a current subscription, you can actually go to this particular website on Norton's site, and it's normally buried and difficult to find, but that's why I have a link for it, and it will allow you to download the most updated version of Norton and install it using the current subscription that your client has. Next we've got antivirus removal tools. Here's the big list from ESET, and we have specific links for Avast, AVG, Norton, and McAfee. Simply clicking on these options will automatically download the latest version of the tool, and that's very important, especially in the case of Norton, and then run the tool. And then below that we have some Windows Update options. We've got standard Windows Update via WSUS server. This is so you can configure Windows Update to run off a WSUS server. I don't know about you, and I don't have one now, but at my last place of employment we had a in-house WSUS server, and we found it was very easy to configure a customer's computer to connect to the WSUS server and do updates that way rather than doing them the traditional way. Then at some point someone alerted me to a program called WSUS Offline, and that's our next option. WSUS Offline, this basically just launches that installer if you have that in your D7 third-party tools. Or we can configure a network location that you have WSUS Offline on your network, and that's all available in D7's config. Next we have download Ms Cert, the System Update Readiness Toolkit. That's something that, especially on Vista, will help fix some issues there. And then the WGA diagnostic site. Next we have custom links, where you can add a URL or directly edit a list of URLs that you've added to this menu. So add your own URLs to this menu with convenient shortcuts to various places on the internet that you want to go to. Next we have folders. The first option opens the user profile directory for the current user. The next one opens program files. The next one opens Windows. The last one creates a directory if it does not exist and opens it. And this is /support in the root of the operating system hard drive. The reason why this is there is I myself and a lot of other people tend to keep things in support directory off the root of the C drive. You know, anything from application installers or other things that we may or may not be using at the time while we're working on a system, or things we might want to leave there for the future if we plan on working on the system again. Then we've got D7 directory, which opens the current directory D7's in. And then we have, you'll see //NAS. This actually is configurable to open any network path that you have. I'm not on my network with NAS right now, but at work I have a NAS share, and I just like to frequently open it through D7. The next thing we have, and that is of course configurable in D7's config under custom stuff. Next we have search. And search D7 is the first item on the list. Essentially, you click search D7 and you type what you want to search for, and the option will be highlighted. So if I search D7 for malware, it found and highlighted at least one result for malware. Now obviously that result's not on the main page, so we're going to have to go down a few pages here. Let's try the malware tab. And you can see that all of these various options were highlighted because they have malware either in the name or in the description of the function. But we'll get to that later. The next search item is search registry. This allows you to search any branch of the registry or all of the branches for a particular search string, either in the name, value, or data. Now this is just like you can do with regedit search, of course. However, what you can't do with regedit search is highlight and delete any number of things all at once. So you get your search results here in this box, you can select all and delete. Whereas in regedit you would have to press F3, delete, F3, delete, F3, delete, and so on. You can also have some other options over here. If the value data references a file, then we'll have some information. D7 will seek out information about that file and fill in here. With that file, you have actions. You can open the file path, Google the file name with the path, Google the file name only, verify the signature of the file, rename the file with a dummy. That's a concept I'll get into at another point in time. Rename the file only, or delete the file, or upload the file to VirusTotal. So those are your options with the D7 registry search, and I hope you'll find that that is far superior than using regedit. Next item up is search file system, and this essentially allows you to search the file system. Right now I don't have any special features with that search. However, I'll be honest with you, I thought this also allowed you to search by MD5 hash, and apparently that's another function hidden somewhere else within D7 that I'll have to get to at another time and see why that's not popping up. And then of course we have web search, which allows you to search the internet for whatever you need to search for with the D7 web browser. And then we have our reboot menu. Reboot menu is probably the thing that I definitely use the most. You can force a log off, force a reboot, force a shutdown, or even force a restart of D7 if D7 is kind of hung for some reason, but not hung enough to allow you to get to this menu. If you're what I mean by forcing log off, reboot, and shutdown is this is basically like using the shutdown program with the with the -F parameter, which forces applications to close, even hung applications. Then we've got reboot to safe mode with networking. This is a one-click quick tool to restart Windows into safe mode with networking without having to do any F8s when you're booting up. So you can just click this and go and not have to worry about it. Next we've got Reboot Master, Reboot Loop Utility. Reboot Master is something I came up with quite a while back when I needed to troubleshoot systems that had problems booting into Windows, but they were intermittent. Now I also use it for that, and I use it for stress testing a system because I've added some capabilities into Reboot Master to perform some stress testing in between reboots. That's also good for driver troubleshooting and all sorts of things where you need to reboot the system a lot if you want to put it in a reboot loop. Then we've got delete a file on reboot, replace a file on reboot. These two options give you direct access to the pending file rename operations registry key, if you're familiar with that. And then we've got abort shutdown restart, where this aborts a Windows shutdown if an abort if you can abort in within a certain amount of time. So that covers our menu at the top. Just below that we've got well, I already went through this: IP address, operating system, Internet Explorer. Yeah. Okay, I think we're done with the top banner of D7. And before I conclude the video, I'm going to go ahead and get into the info page right here. First thing we've got is the installed date. It tells you the date that Windows was last installed or repair installed, and will tell you how many days old that is. It translates it into days. We'll tell you the system uptime. This is how many days, hours, and minutes the computer has been running. Then we've got boot time, which queries the Windows performance counters to find out how long it took Windows to boot to a fully functional state. That's not always accurate, mind you, but it's a good measure of performance, especially if you're trying to tune up a computer. Then we've got the last run date. What this does is it shows you the last time D7 was run on the computer. Now by default, the last run date is only added, if you click on the little 3 dashes here. The reason for this is not everybody wants their copy of D7 to just leave information in the registry, and that's where it has to be stored if D7 is to find that information at a later date on the same computer, because you're going to use D7 on different computers, so it's not something I can just store in an INI file. Now you can configure D7 through the config in the general behavior section to always store the last run date in the registry, but that is not something that I've done, so you actually have to click to store the run date. Then below that we've got environment normal mode. You would also see safe mode or safe mode with networking. To the right we've got UAC enabled, that's user account control. If you want to click on that, it'll ask you if you'd like to disable user account control, and vice versa. If it's disabled, you can click on it and that will enable it. Next we've got normal, the user, and then we've got Nick. That's my user profile name, of course, and if you click on that, it automatically opens up the user accounts. Just another shortcut to that. Below that we've got the path, C:/users/Nick. That's the path of the user account. This is important to see every once in a while, because sometimes you've got systems on a domain, or for what other reason they've had temporary or corrupted profiles. So they'll have multiple profiles with similar names and a dot, and then maybe the computer name after it, or .000 or etc. So this is kind of good to know. And if you click on it, it will open that path directly in Explorer, so you can quickly get to where you're trying to go if you're trying to go somewhere in the user profile path. Then below that we have the computer name, and then out to the right, whether it's on a domain or not. Below that we have Antivirus. Moving on down, we have the reason why it says C drive. If your OS drive was actually a D partition for some reason, that would say D. This is the total size, the space available, NTFS or FAT, page file. If you click on the page file, which sometimes it can't be determined, but if you click on the page file, it'll open up the dialog so that you can get to it and adjust it. Then we've got CPU. You see I'm running a i7. I love it. I highly recommend it. It's telling you hyper-threading / multi-core. That's because D7 can't tell the difference between multiple cores and hyper-threading. So you see HT / multi-core, and then in parentheses 8. That number 8 actually stands for 8 hyperthreads or multi-cores. The way that works out on my particular computer is it's a quad-core hyperthreading, so it would show up as 8. If it were non-hyperthreaded, it would just show up as 4, or if it were, you get the idea. Then below that we have the video graphics adapter. One neat thing about that is if you click on Intel HD Graphics 3000, it'll pop up, go to the Intel support website, and that's a pretty neat feature. So you can quickly get to the drivers for that, and you'll see the driver version and the date of the version directly below that. Then below that, MB stands for motherboard. You see I'm sporting a Lenovo Emerald Lake Fab 1, whatever that means. If I click on that, it asks me if I want to go to the Lenovo website. Now the neat thing about this option is if you're actually running like a Dell, it'll have the service tag displayed there. So you can click on it and it'll ask you to go to the Dell support website. Well, it'll also automatically copy the service tag to the clipboard. So all you've got to do is paste it in once the website opens. No more looking on behind the case for the Dell service tag, because D7 gathers that for you. On most desktop motherboards, it also gathers the model of the motherboard, and likewise with the Dell and the service tag, once you click on it and open up the support website for that particular motherboard, you can just right click and paste in the model number. Then below that, of course, we've got BIOS version and date. Below that, we've got dumps, and this tells you if there are any mini dumps generated in Windows and when the last one was. If any are found, you can click on the dump and it will automatically open up Nearsoft's blue screen view for you to get a quick analysis of what's going on there. Now in the right hand side, we've got the alerts column, and the first thing is service pack OK. That's telling me that the Windows service pack is up to date. I've got my service pack 1 on Windows 7. Next thing, it's telling me IE version is OK because I'm sporting IE 9 on this particular copy. If either of these things were not satisfactory, this is the alerts column, so the item would be in red and you would get an alert for that. Now below that, this label here with just 3 dashes is basically inactive right now, but normally, as you can see when I hover over that, down at the bottom here, I can't believe I haven't talked about this yet. Down at the bottom here, we have a description field. So when you hover your mouse over something within D7, you get a description down at the bottom. And you can see by the description over this label, it alerts you when the system is either low on RAM or possibly needs a RAM upgrade. Now, if the system is low on RAM, it'll tell you system is low on RAM. If you need a RAM upgrade, it'll tell you you probably need a RAM upgrade. The differentiation between those two is that the low on RAM can occur if the system is currently low on RAM. The RAM upgrade will occur regardless if I don't think, or D7 doesn't think, that your system has enough RAM in it for the OS that it's running. Like for example, you're going to get this message if you have less than 1 GB of RAM on Windows XP or less than 2 GB of RAM on Windows Vista. Just limits that I've personally set, and I feel that at this point in time you need your attention called to upgrading this RAM because it's a problem. Next up, we have a label below that, and it says no problems detected in the user profile path. Basically, this alert goes off if D7 thinks your user profile directory path is a temporary one, like in the case of a corrupted user profile. Next below that, we have check event log, and it's in red, and that's because I have some errors in my Windows event log that have occurred since the last startup. Now when I click on that, it opens D7's internal event viewer, and you can see I am on the system log and I'm looking at errors, and you can see the errors that I have here, and I've got one in bold, and that is not very good. That is a disk error on my hard drive. That's not good. Actually, that's good to know about. The rest of these errors are kind of not important, but they are errors, and if you'll notice up at the top, show since last reboot only. That's the difference between D7's event viewer and the event viewer in Windows. I can just check that box and it only cares and only shows you what has happened since the last reboot. Alternately, I can look at warnings. I've had 2 warnings. I can look at both together, see what's occurred. I can do all events, or D7 also has some events as well. And I've had plenty of D7 events on this machine, so I'm not going there because I use this machine to develop D7 on. Also, on the internal event viewer thing, you can write a test event if you want to any log that you want to, and you can clear all of the event logs and optionally back them up first. But these are just other features of D7's internal event viewer that I'm not going to really get into right now. But just giving you a quick idea, I can, for example, click this application error and click Google selected, and voila, it Googles the event ID, the event number, the title, application error, and then the rest of the text. So you can see right here, I've got a Google of that error, and it's found, believe it or not, and it's a .NET runtime issue. Imagine that. Okay, moving on. The next thing we have is no AV software alert. This alert will alert you when no antivirus software is detected or when multiple antivirus software packages are installed. This is something that is reported directly by Windows. D7 does not know antivirus software from a hole in the ground. It gets this information from Windows from WMI. And a lot of people ask me about that because sometimes things show up here that are no longer installed on the system. Sometimes some malware shows up in there. And sometimes multiple items show up when, well, only one item is left installed on the system. That's actually a problem with WMI, and I have a known issue about it on my website, so I'm not going to get into that right here. Next we have the alert for paging file, which is okay. Of course, it can't detect my paging file, so that's a moot point. Then we have free space alert is okay. This is going to alert you when your free space is low on the operating system drive. Then we have device manager is clean. Now, if there are errors in the device manager, you'll get an alert here. And if you click on this, it will give you the opportunity to see what those errors are and optionally open the device manager. Next down the list, we have check services. This is a quick function that just checks to see what services are configured to start with Windows automatically but are not currently started at the time that you open D7. And if you hover the mouse over this, you'll see in the description field at the bottom, the following auto start services are not running. And I have Ceip Updater, which is not running. Most likely that's a service that starts with Windows but then stops once the update has been checked. So that's a non-issue, but D7 doesn't really have a way of knowing that. So this is just to draw your attention to what's going on in Windows. If you click on this, it will open up the services computer MMC snap-in. The next thing below this is 3 dashes right now, but this alerts when a drive is found to be in PIO mode. Sometimes the detection on this is not 100% accurate, but when you click on it, it asks you if you'd like to apply a fix. Basically, this is similar to a reset DMA Visual Basic script you may have seen out there before, which essentially resets the DMA counters on your IDE controllers so that a device that's been knocked down to a lower DMA mode or PIO mode eventually can be reset. Below that we have Ceip Enabled, and your description tells you this is about the Windows Customer Experience Improvement Program, which is enabled in Windows 7 by default, and it's not easy to find and turn off. So with this option you can just click it and it brings up the prompt where you can disable the Ceip, and I will disable it, and now my alert's gone. The next item will alert you when auto updates are not enabled. The next item alerts you when Windows is not activated, and then the last item alerts you when System Restore is not enabled. Note this does not alert you when System Restore is broken, and the same goes for auto updates. It only alerts you when it's enabled or disabled. Clicking on the options will give you the ability to enable or disable them with a click. Configuration. Startup behavior. Yes, when D7 first starts up, I mentioned there are certain things that it can do, like show you hidden files and show you file extensions. These items are enabled right here under the startup behavior section of the behavior section of D7's config. Of course, you can also start D7 with a certain processor priority, start it under the system account, which we discussed earlier, or ask if you want to start it under the system account. We can also disable user account control on startup. Below that we have check Windows event logs for issues. This is the same thing as this is the check that enables the alert in this column here. Below that, check device manager for issues. This enables the alert in this column here. Then we have check hkcr/xxx/shell/open/command. This checks where xxx is exe file, com file, bat file. This checks those sections of HKey classes root in the registry for hijacks. And if something is hijacked, D7 is going to alert you on startup. It's a very quick check, so you might as well leave it enabled. Next we've got check time zone, which I'm not doing, but you can check the time zone. So if the time zone doesn't match on the computer, doesn't match what you have it configured for here, then it will automatically correct it for you. It'll let you know and correct it for you. If you need help determining what time zone you're in, I don't know how to help you, but if you click on the TZ help here, it'll give you a little information on the TZ window. I mean, that's only available in Windows 7 though. Next we have check for D7 updates. I highly recommend this because D7 is updated so frequently. Unless you have D7 scheduled to update itself on, say, a nightly basis, and that's something I can get into with the scheduling section of config at a later date. Then we've got install shell extensions. These are your right-click context menu items. For example, I have these context menu items here, which I will get into at a later date. I recommend using those. Then we've got brand OS at every startup. I may have mentioned brand OS on Windows here. This applies custom operating system branding to the computer. You can have that work automatically at every startup, and you can also below that have D7 install a custom desktop shortcut for you to a certain internet address that you want. So you want D7 to always leave your website on somebody's desktop. It can do that for you. Below that we've got auto mode behavior. That's something to discuss for another time. General behavior, the first option, don't add D7 to the run once registry key. I don't ever recommend checking that. D7, the way it behaves is it adds itself to the run once registry key so that it always runs when you restart the computer. When you close D7, instead of just restarting the computer, it removes itself from the run once registry key. So there is no need to worry about it if you close D7. But if you're just restarting the computer, you want D7 to start when the computer restarts. So it wants to do that automatically. There are a couple other quirks to this behavior and reasons for it being there. So I like to recommend people just leave it there as a matter of convenience. The next item, we've got delete items to the recycling bin. Now, this applies to individually deleted items, not functions like delete temp files, which never go to the recycling bin. But essentially, this option determines whether D7 is going to delete an item, if deleted through D7, to the recycling bin, or if it's bypassed and deleted permanently. By default, that's enabled, so even you're deleting malware and things like that, it's going to the recycling bin in case you accidentally delete something bad. Pros, go ahead and disable that. Prevent system sleep mode and prevent screensaver. D7 can prevent these items and will by default while it's running, so that the system will never go to sleep or never go to screensaver while D7's running because you're working on the system. You can also minimize D7 to the system tray or not. Replace Task Manager with sysinternal's Process Explorer is the next option. This option is also available inside Process Explorer, but D7 can do that for you as well. That replaces your Control-Alt-Delete Task Manager with sysinternal's Process Explorer, of course. Next, for our international folks that aren't in the US, we have display dates as DD/MM/YYYY, which will naturally use the DDMM date format instead of the MMDD that we use here in the US and other places. Then we also have automatically store last D7 run date/time in the registry. This is what I was getting at earlier, right here, the last run. You can configure D7 to automatically store that runtime in the registry. Below this we have defraggler behavior, and I'll get into that later. And then we have shutdown behavior. Shutdown behavior, this first option, remove this particular DLL file. I recommend to leave that off. And I'll explain that. That's explained on my website, and I'd prefer you go there and get the explanation. The next item is super hidden files. You can take no action, you can hide them on close, or you can apply the original setting. So essentially, this will these options right here, you've also got file extensions and user account control, where you can enable that on close or apply original setting. Now, these complement these options up here: show the hidden and super hidden files, show the file extensions, disable UAC on startup, which I want to do. These complement these because user account control, well, let's say I always want to enable it on close. File extensions, I want the original customer setting to be applied. Hidden, super hidden files, let's leave the original customer setting apply. So you get your preference there, and these items are taken care of whenever you close D7. Okay, now the configuration is saved the way I like it, and I think we've covered D7's basic introduction. Stay tuned for more videos.